This sewing tip that I'm going to give you right now for the Singer Heavy Duty 4423 sewing machine is going to save you a ton of headaches. So one of the things, if you can get into the habit of doing all the time when you start and stop, will save you so many things. I always get people in, they're like, oh, I have to hold my threads when I start to sew, or oh, my thread always comes out of the needle. You know what they're not doing? They're not starting and stopping with the take-up lever, that's this guy right here, at the highest position. I think this was the first thing I learned when I started to sew. So for example, let's just sew along, we're just doing a straight stitch, and the needle stops. Now right now the needle is out of the fabric. And so that means a lot of people will lift it up and pull it out, and then just, it doesn't work well, it doesn't pull out well, it doesn't start the next stitch very well. And that's because we are not finished with this stitch. So just because the needle's out of the fabric, you must bring the take-up lever up to the top. Do you even see it? It's not there. And that's because if I turn my hand wheel even further, it's the last thing that happens. I turn the hand wheel always towards me. That's another thing to do, is make sure that comes up to the highest position. So watch this. As you lift up the presser foot, pull your fabric out, cut your thread. When you start to sew, because you finished the last stitch, thumbs up for that, then when you start again, these threads don't bounce around, they don't get pulled out of your needle, and you can just start to sew. Now, did you notice, so here, when I stop, the needle's like partially down. So I'll finish that stitch, bring the take-up lever to the highest position. I remember when I was young, it looks like it's looking at you. So if it wasn't looking at you, you couldn't pull the fabric out. So I can pull that out and easily finish that stitch. And if you have your threads just kind of down and underneath the little foot, there's a groove right in the front to put it in. And you slide that in, start to sew. You get to enjoy this project instead of fighting with the machine. So if you have been fighting with your machine, no matter what brand of sewing machine you own, that is actually the key on everything. So here, needles up, but let's bring that all the way to the highest position. So when we start our next seam, it will be perfect.